And we want to thank everyone today on behalf of the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Welcome to the RITIS user group. We're going to go over just a few housekeeping items and then get started. Again, as usual with RITIS, this meeting is being held on Zoom webinar. You can use your audio either through your computer or phone, whichever works. Important to know that this web meeting is being recorded and it will be available to all participants following the event once it's cleaned up and posted on the Coalition's YouTube channel. If you have any questions about the audio or web, please reach out to Esther. The chat box is not available to participants, so we're going to tell you how, in fact, you can ask your questions. At the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little Q&A box. You're going to click on that, and then you're going to type your questions in there. Matt Glasser and Denise Marco will be keeping track of those questions, and we'll be asking those. We'll be asking the speakers throughout the event as appropriate. If you have a question that really would be better asked verbally, you can raise your hand. That puts you at the top of the list and lets us know that you, in fact, have a question, and we can unmute your line and you're able to ask your question. One more thing, as with all the other RITIS user group meetings, the presentation as well as the recording and the Q&A summary will become available to all people who have registered or participated in this event. You'll receive a follow-up email. The information links will be posted on the Coalition's website. And as I mentioned, the presentation will be on the Coalition's YouTube channel. And at this point, I'm very happy to introduce Denise Marco. She is the TSMO Program Director for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Denise?
Thanks, Joanna. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. Welcome, everyone. We always enjoy, the Coalition enjoys, as part of the data tool program, hosting these RITIS user groups. We hope you find it enlightening, educational, and all that good stuff. So next slide, please. Let me dive right in. As tradition, we always talk a little bit at the beginning about what the Coalition has been up to. The top list talks about some of our recent meetings that we've had, ranging all the way from an electric vehicle working group meeting down to yesterday. We had a highway operation group, or our HOGS exchange in the Potomac region in Virginia, where we talked about incident management and all good things in between. We've done a travel information committee meeting where we talked about scenario planning. We did a flooding and a snowstorm, how to better prepare for the winter. There was an all things ATIS webinar on September 27th, the advanced driver assist systems. And then of course, our traffic data marketplace, which I'll get to in just a second. We had some vendor forums. We will be continuing that throughout the year. What we have upcoming in November 2nd, we have another HOGS exchange in Philadelphia in the Delaware Valley region. We're going to also talk about incident management with our stakeholders there. November 9th, there's an automated traffic signal performance metrics. That's a mouthful, ATSPM webinar featuring some folks dealing with signal performance measures. Our RITIS workshop number 3, this is an invite that just went out, I think yesterday, November 17th. John Allen's going to be talking about after action templates. So if you're of the mind of wanting to learn how to do that better and efficiently in RITIS, that's something you may want to put on your calendar. Again, Southern HOGS, that's a special invite only being held in North Carolina, where the folks in North Carolina are going to showcase their new traffic incident management track, which we're excited about. And then, of course, we have couple more things coming up in the next gen webinar in January, et cetera. So next slide, please. The only other piece of information I want to give you is an update on our traffic data marketplace, because as you know, it went live July 1st. It's got 6 data sets in it. So we're offering travel time and speed, procurements of volume, conflation, origin, destination, waypoint, and freight. We've got 12 vendors. We have an updated process, but I think just to provide you an update, we have some new. Massachusetts, for example, is in the process of or has procured freight data. So Bob, at some point in time, I'm sure we're going to hear how that's going. Rhode Island has got some new signal packaging. The New Jersey is also procuring some freight data relative to trip data that's focusing on freight. Virginia and Georgia have just procured WEJO data, so they're in the process of finalizing the documents for that. DriveWise is of an interest in Florida and Virginia. So we have a lot going on. Replica is a new ancillary product that deals with OD that Tennessee is in the process of procuring. And we also, as a piece of information, the vendors are looking to develop some new pricing packages targeted strictly towards MPOs. So stay tuned for that because that more information will be coming with that as well. So with that being said, I think I'm ready to turn this over to Matt. Next slide. Take it away. Any questions, please put in the chat box. All right. There you go.
Thanks, Denise. I appreciate it, and welcome everyone to our quarterly RITIS user group meeting. Excited to have everyone here. To go ahead and hop into the next part, I want to share with you the agenda that we have. Obviously, right now, I get the pleasure of introducing our speakers and welcoming everyone. Over the course of this meeting, we'll have Michael Pack discuss with us the new RITIS tools and recent enhancements that his team has been working on. Charlie Fisher from Ohio DOT is our spotlight presentation of the quarter, and he'll be focusing on using RITIS for travel time comparisons and using the travel time delta ranking tools, which are specific tools for the high resolution data that some agencies have been taking advantage of. Additionally, Franz will speak more about the cause of congestion tools that have been updated recently. John Allen will run through the PDA suite performance measures working group that he's been leading for us. Bob Frey will then hop into the enhancements working group that he's been leading for the past few months and what's come out of it. And then I get to poke your brain and pick your brain to get some agency input about how we can make RITIS better in the months and years to come. So with that, let me introduce you to today's speakers, and I'm going to run through all of them very quickly, so that way when we get to their presentations, we can just kind of hop right in. So first and foremost, I think you guys all know him, but in case you don't, Michael Pack is the director of the CATT lab at the University of Maryland, where he works to make transportation data more easily accessible and usable by operators, planners, and researchers. He has previously worked at the University of Virginia in the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Next up is Charlie Fisher. He's a professional engineer from Ohio DOT, and he's worked there since 2007 and holds a Bachelor of Civil Engineering from the University of Dayton. Charlie leads the traffic signal and ITS engineering team at the central office. He manages and develops statewide traffic signal standards and policies and oversees project management and planning of statewide traffic operations projects, with the most exciting being testing new technology and devices to better support the public transportation system. Franz earned his BA in physics and BS in astronomy from the University of Florida and his master's from West Virginia University, and finally his PhD in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Maryland, with an emphasis on transportation engineering. Currently, Mark is the lead transportation analyst at the CATT lab, obviously again at the University of Maryland, where he is developing and improving online transportation analysis tools and visualizations for public and private sector clients. And last but not least is John Allen. John assists in user experience, user interface development, quality assurance and control, and manages special projects and aids in the development of strategic directions for the RITIS platform. John has also acted as a facilitator for a number of different organizations, including the Eastern Transportation Coalition and the partners in using archived operations data. So that's our speakers. And now let me hop on over to you guys, to all the agencies that are joining. We're excited to have 84 participants already logged in. We expect that number to go up. I think from a registration standpoint, we've had our highest number to date of over 162 from agencies all over the country, which we're very excited about. Certainly want to welcome some folks from Kentucky, a recent addition to the Eastern Transportation Coalition, as well as a few folks outside of the coalition that are coming to us from Texas and Wisconsin and a few other places. So first polling question, it certainly will not be the last, but it's one that we like to have to get us kick-started every single meeting. And if you guys would go ahead and pull this up, very quick, easy question. How often do you attend RITIS user group meetings? Once or twice a year, pretty much every meeting, or this is going to be your first time? Leave that up here for a few seconds. And while you're finishing up that poll, I just want to direct your attention very quickly down to the chat box. You'll notice that Esther has provided a few links for you guys to take a look at. Those relate to the marketplace and some of the Eastern Transportation Coalition resources. So that said, wow, this is it's pretty exciting to have almost 20% of our attendees have this be your first meeting. So certainly a big welcome to each one of you. And of course, it looks like we have a whole host of pros that this is a regular meeting for you. So again, thank you and welcome to the meeting. I think we can go ahead and get on to the next slide where Michael Pack will take the show from here. Michael Pack, it's all yours.
All right, I'm going to do a quick overview of some of the things we've deployed in the last month or so, just to get everyone back on the same page. Next slide, please. So within both Traffic View, which is the public version of RITIS, like the travel information side of things, and in RITIS proper, we've now implemented aerial photography. And you can toggle between the regular view and the satellite view in the lower left-hand corner of the map. You'll see a little box that pops up, just like Google Maps does it. You can click that and you can switch between. This helps you get better detail if you're trying to do screenshots, try to understand exactly where things are on the roadway. We're working to add this into other tools as well, but it's in RITIS and Traffic View thus far. Next, please. You're going to hear a big presentation about this a little bit later, but we have officially now released the causes of congestion deep dive tool within the Probe Data Analytics Suite. So if you are a state that funds RITIS and the Probe Data Analytics add-on, you'll now have access to this, which allows you to essentially select any road in the country, or any road in your geography at least, and a date range, and you'll be able to see why the roads are congested. Next slide, please. Oh, wrong way. There we go. We have updated several different data sources. DC has made a lot of changes to their ATMS recently, and anytime any agency makes changes to their ATMS or their other computer dispatch systems, we try to integrate those as quickly as possible. And so that's happened with Maryland, DC. We're doing some work in Virginia as well, even though that's not listed here. And more than that, we've started to spend a lot of time on the APIs. For those of you who don't use the RITIS website, but you want to build your own applications, we've been making some enhancements, not just to support the events that I'm talking about here, but also a lot of enhancements for scalability. So you can bang on the API a little bit harder now than you used to be able to, and everything continues to function just fine. Next slide, please. For those who leverage Waze data in RITIS, you'll see that those load a lot faster now, and there can be tens of thousands of Waze events at any point in time. So this will be a noticeable improvement for you all. We've also done some stability and security improvements for the CCTV feeds in the system, and updated some FAQs surrounding how we handle the CCTV information and making it clear that we're not recording any video. And to support our support staff internally, we've done some additional error logging recently, so that when you do reach out to us and ask for support, that we'll have a little bit better information to be able to support you a little bit later. And as far as the other enhancements go, I've also made some improvements to how fast the weather radar layers can load. Next. And there's always plenty of bugs to work on. We certainly aren't listing all of them here, but these are some of the larger bugs that we've been working on over the last month or so. A lot of these have to do with security patching and making sure that certain buttons do what they're supposed to do when you click on them, especially when you're registering for new accounts. Next, please. And you're going to hear more about a lot of this later on when Bob Frey gives his presentation about some of the significant new things that we're going to be working on for the next quarter and the rest of the year. So make sure you stick around for that. There's some big things he's going to talk about. Moving on to the Probe Data Analytics Suite. For those of you who use HERE's probe data, they have a new way of segmenting segments. Instead of just looking at TMC segments, which can sometimes be long, they now are able to break down their segments into these things called topology subsegments. So it's smaller chunks of the roadway. And we've now put that into the massive data downloader and several other tools within the Probe Data Analytics Suite. We haven't finished all of them yet, but we're getting very close. Next, please. Cause of congestion graphs. We mentioned this a little bit earlier in RITIS, but it also belongs in Probe Data Analytics Suite. There's a lot of new states that have been added, and there's new visualizations that we've been working on specifically to break out the multiple cause events so that you can see all of the potential multiple causes that go into a particular cause of the congestion. Next slide, please. And everyone should be able to see data going back to January 1st of 2019 through the end of July 2022. We are working on automating the updates of the system so that you'll, maybe once a month or once a week, we'll have new data, but there will always be some sort of lag associated with this. Just the way the calculations work and the methodologies, it takes hours and hours to process all this information. So we'll be making it more clear what that cadence is going to be the next time we get together. But a lot of states now have access to this. Next, please. For those of you who use the NPM RDS data, that is now updated weekly instead of monthly like it used to be. This is a new requirement that the feds put out, and we are meeting that now. And we'll be talking more about this in an upcoming NPM RDS quarterly webinar, which I think is happening in about 5 or 6 weeks. You'll be getting a notice about that before too long. But just note that that data is available weekly now instead of monthly. Next. Other enhancements, there's some smaller things that users have been complaining about during these user group meetings that we've worked on, including just making it easier to understand where things are going on. When you click on a particular segment, it'll give you more details. But something we're working on right now, haven't quite finished yet, is on road selection by map click. So right now you have to go into the system, you have to select the name of a road, then you have to select a starting point on the road from a drop-down list to an ending point. We're working on integrating some APIs to allow you to select a point on a road with your mouse and then select another point on the road with your mouse, and it'll connect all the dots and generate a road inventory for you for use in your queries. So that's being worked on. It's not quite deployed yet. Next. And there's, again, a lot of bugs that we've been working on related to the bottleneck ranking tool. And sometimes we were excluding incidents. They weren't getting mapped properly to the results and other things. You can always go to the PDA suite or the RITIS website, and you can see a list of all of these issues in our release notes. Next. Signal analytics, next slide. So the biggest thing we've done in signal analytics, and there's been a lot, is we've added 43 new metrics to this tool that you can visualize in the table of all of the metrics and outputs of a particular signal query, or you can download these to an Excel file and do your own analysis with them. So that's a significant amount of data that's now available for download and analysis. Next. And I believe that's it. Those are the major things that we've worked on. But again, stick around for Bob Frey's presentation later. He'll tell you a lot more of the cool stuff that's coming up. Now I think we're going to hand it over to Charlie with Ohio DOT.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me get my screen set up properly here. All right. Well, looks good. Okay. Thank you. Well, thanks again for having me. So when folks from RITIS and INRIX came to Ohio several months ago, I was asked to speak, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to speak in October?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. That's months away." But so I am glad to be here. Excited to share how we use some of the RITIS tools, and as you mentioned in my intro and right here, I'm a traffic operations engineer. So my side of it is more deep. We use it more detailed daily. But then also we look at things down the road monthly and yearly. So we think we found some very cool uses for the RITIS tools on our team that I'm excited to share with you today. Okay, there we go. Sorry, had some issues there. All right. So today the topics, I'll give you a quick Ohio overview, what our landscape looks like here in Ohio, what our responsibilities are, and get into some RITIS tools that we really used and found helpful in our signal timing program, as well as our daily operations, and tell you some cool steps we've learned that we're looking forward to use next. And a big thing, I guess, why RITIS is important to us is we have pride in our in-house maintenance. So I'll give you some more details here in a second. But from what I've heard from counterparts, it's rare, but we do all of our daily maintenance and most of our smaller upgrades in-house. We only have contractors doing the larger full signal rebuilds and things like that. So with that, we need to value the time of our technicians and our district traffic engineers to put priority to the valuable work. So we're not chasing down a random complaint or attacking certain corridors that are issue corridors. We think we found a method to identify these hotspots and take advantage of the things where they make the most benefit and the most bang for our buck. So here's our Ohio overview, and being from ODOT, I'll say we have nearly 1,700 signals with about close to 800 of those in systems, and I'm sure our challenges are not unique. No one has enough staff, and people need to devote resources to looking at signal performance data. And we've all got challenges of rising intersection crashes, either vehicular or pedestrians. So anything we can do to hit on those is always the goal of our agency. As a note, we only have 1,700 signals that we own and maintain, but Ohio in general has 10,000 signals. So being home rule, the locals take care of theirs, but they still utilize the program I'm going to talk about, and we oversee all the federal dollars and state funding in terms of ODOT projects and or funneling that through ODOT to the locals. So before, a big partner of ours is our Office of Safety. So everyone's Office of Safety directs hundreds of millions of dollars. I know ours is over $150 million. It seems like annually. Ohio's 7th in terms of number of signalized intersections. But this slide is just to kind of reiterate that crash data is showing that local facilities crash problem exists on local facilities, not just ODOT roadways. So I guess one thing is, RITIS doesn't care who owns and maintains those roadways. So that helps us when we take a look overall at a district or at an urban area to, we have a lot of jurisdiction lines and where those responsibilities jump. So, this sees it all. And something with our partners in the highway safety program is they develop annually, or it's possible they update it annually, but I believe they submit it to FHWA every few years, but their strategic highway safety plan. And a part of that is an intersection subcommittee, and that's where I'm active in our state. And out of our action items for the year are all these things. So in short, RITIS basically hits on all of these. So it is new technology to make intersections safer. It's an easy way to prove that we are hitting this initiative, and we've got some actionable things coming from RITIS. So to get into specifics here and some of the tools I'm going to touch on, here's a slide just kind of guiding out our signal timing program. So we use the Region Explorer to help find and identify problem areas. I'll show you an example of our travel time delta ranking to rank those corridors. And we do that before the studies, and then we also do it after to make sure they're performing as expected. And then we also have the PDA dashboard, where we'll look at that for real-time monitoring. And then further, if we identify any things, we can dive even deeper into the signal analytics. So I like that Michael mentioned there's 43 more data points that we can pull from that. So really get down into the weeds at that intersection. So Region Explorer. So this tool, we've had some good use with it just for our maintenance and daily operations. So to me, it's a live look. It looks like Google Maps traffic layer, and it tells you what's going on out there. I love the events legend. If you know there's construction out there, and it shows up in the map. And then something that goes beyond the Region Explorer, and I think this is the huge difference versus Google Maps traffic layer is after hours complaints. So I just love being able to click back. You can go to your time selection, and you can go to a complaint you had yesterday, and you can validate that complaint. So this is actually an example from last week that we, of course, got a call after everyone, that 9 to 5 shift had gone home. But we received an after hours complaint, and we were able to go to the specific time, the specific place, and we validated that complaint. So once we got in the next morning, we were able to roll back the clock and see the bottleneck there. We ended up validating it basically by going into our controller and seeing that it was running preempt about 2,000 times in an hour. So there was a crash at an adjacent intersection that was the emergency vehicle preemption was still tripping the signal down there in question. So it was something that we need to act to fix, and we've reached out to our local fire to see what was going on down there. This is near Cincinnati, but a great look back on complaints to validate your time to investigate things. So that's a good daily maintenance or a quick look into the Region Explorer. Our signal timing benefits, I'll get into this. So this is our bigger system and corridor approach here of how we use the RITIS tools. So I'm kind of going to step from the outside in here in this brochure. But so on the right, I kind of told you how many intersections that ODOT owns, and we have remote communications to about 70 of them into the signal controllers. And our signal timing benefits, if you look at the column on the left and the middle. So annually we run this report, and in 2021 we retimed 26 corridors, 227 intersections, and all those estimated annual savings in the middle equates to that BC on the bottom left. So we do this all looking at pre-travel time versus post-travel time. So we post-process that in a spreadsheet that we developed based on the 2021 figures for the cost of time, the cost of a crash, the price of fuel. So this is a big, we run this report every year, and this helps us justify the funding, the safety funding that we request for our program. So how do we choose which corridors to study every year? So I think most agencies have this sort of list that I'm showing here on my screen. We call out tier one corridors as those over 25,000 ADT, but you know, these are all wishful triggers. I know the 5 to 7 years is what we want to get. We probably get that for our tier one, but our tier one corridors are really only a third of those. So the other ones probably don't get looked at holistically for 7+ years. So, you know, we feel that they need to be given attention way more often than that. And RITIS provides that look into those corridors. So you're not totally ignoring those corridors for several years. So if something comes up, you can see it and identify it. And one of those ways we can identify it is through the travel time delta ranking tool. So I guess something handy here that I'm pointing to in the red is a best practice that we found, but we preloaded all of our ODOT corridors. So and we use common nomenclature, and we allowed all agencies to see these segments. So I think that was a great first step in us in getting RITIS off the ground, getting people using it. You know, we took the time at central office to divide and conquer. We have close to 130 corridors. We divided them up across 4 people, and everybody just kind of took their turn. So we did, you know, a southbound of a corridor, a northbound of a corridor, and then a combined north and south of that corridor. So we did three segment sets for every corridor. And this just allows us to jump into our corridors that much more quickly, especially for this slide. So this was, we were planning out our which corridors we were going to retime in the next year's program. We input all 126 of these into the travel time delta ranking. So what you're seeing here is, you know, we wanted to find the worst of the worst. And in this case, we were looking at 2018 versus 2019 travel times. So a beauty of this is it normalizes that data on the corridor, where some of our corridors are 20 signals, some of them are 2 at a ramp, or, you know, 2 to 5. So we're looking for the worst of the worst here. And as you can see, the pink, the longer pink line is trending the worst. And 114 there was obviously one that we needed to take care of, that had gotten significantly worse between 2018 and 2019. And there was a lot of growth and development on that corridor, so it did make sense. So after you run the travel time delta ranking tool, by selecting those corridors, you can also export it out to Excel. So here we're looking at the delta median. So it's looking at the travel time in your before time period against your travel time in your after time period. And we just kind of did this again here with some conditional formatting. You know, those 126 corridors stacked on top of each other, not the easiest to see if you're doing a large scale like that. So this really helped us drill down and look at those top 20. We were saying, hey, those are going to get accomplished this year by this program. So just going back, you know, summarize here, we preloaded the corridors, and it just allows us to validate what we're doing, validate to the stakeholders. Yes, this corridor was identified as one of the worst, so that's why we're doing it. If there's any public complaints or any districts who wonder why, you know, they're not getting a piece of the pie that time around, it's a great tool for us to show that to them. And those corridors you load, those are all in there for other tools as well. So like I said, we go back and we can use this travel tool, delta travel time tool, to post evaluate, you know, what are our successes of the retiming program. We want to make sure that they're trending in the correct direction after they've been done. So this is one way we validate that, where we have them in there already. We populate them for that year or for that quarter, and you know, you can share those results across your agency. Another way that we ensure that they are the corridors are performing the way that you anticipate, or after they've been retimed, you want to make sure that they are still performing well. And one way we do that is this dashboard. So to me, it's truly a set it and forget it. So I set up these, there's about 20 of them on here, recently retimed corridors, and these evaluate the planning time index. So that's basically, free flow, with your average delay, and it populates this number. So what we're looking at here on the last two columns on the right is the current week versus a week a year ago. And then right there at the differential is between them. So this just tells me very quickly, I open up this dashboard and it tells me if the corridor needs any kind of investigation, any kind of tweaking. Maybe communications have gone down out there, or maybe there's some MOT shifts or diversion route from another construction project that I did not know about. That happens all the time. So this is a great snapshot just to see what is going on, and especially for me here with the recently retimed, because sometimes if you do have multi-jurisdictional corridors, those local stakeholders sometimes are a little reluctant to signal timing changes. And I mean, we've caught some that have, to get a squeaky wheel to stop complaining, say at a small side street, they'll just flip the corridor back to free, or flip that intersection back to free. And maybe this would prompt us to it and say, hey, that was recently retimed. Why is it acting that way? And we've actually, we've had good conversations with the local to say, hey, let us tweak it before you flip it back. So the one I highlight there in red was one that was just retimed, real close to when I ran this report. So it had a huge difference going from 2.4 down to 1.2 in its planning time index. So this was a great example of a retiming success. And then signal analytics. So as part of the tools here, we have about 100 intersections, I believe, in the signal analytics, and it's just been valuable for us to see those metrics and drill down and see intersection specific data. So all the other tools are very helpful in identifying corridor monitoring and issues and successes, but where maybe something's wrong at one intersection, and this has helped us drill down here. We had an example where the corridor popped up as being slow on a Sunday, and we looked into it and we said, oh, this one intersection down here is causing some problems. We've got some split failures on main line. We looked into it, and it's happening every Sunday the last 2 weeks, and it's like, oh, well, there's a new church down there, so that's where the problem was. So so we've used the tools for corridor wide down to intersection specific, and it's been helpful for us. No hardware. That's always a big thing with our traffic operations tool folks, is they don't want any more hardware in their cabinets. So this is a huge benefit for us. Like I said, we meeting our SHSP goals. It all ties back to that safety for the traveling public, and then optimizing performance of the current network. I'll say we have information-rich metrics. We have visuals that are easily digestible. For us, we're moving away from those 300-page reports, especially for signal timing studies and everything else, because who really goes back and reads those? These are just great dashboards and great looks to see things how they look. And I know as we get more familiar with RITIS and use even more tools, there's a lot of things that we want to use, like the trend map and the report templates that just benefit in that visual storytelling. And I think I said it in the roadmap slide, but you're sharing these with executives, you're sharing these with stakeholders, you're sharing these with PR or maybe local media. So if you have easy to read graphics and the storytelling, I think that gives me a leg up, especially as an engineer, being able to give them a nice story on paper and not have to craft up a large article or something like that. So with that, don't know if we have time for questions now, but I appreciate sharing how we use the tools and how it's been a benefit for us at ODOT.
Yeah, that was great, Charlie, and certainly want to open it up for questions right now. And while folks are putting their thoughts into the Q&A, I'll certainly start off. Have you all, with your engagement with RITIS, have you had any locals start using RITIS to have a conversation, or are you guys doing these before and after studies and just kind of handing them to them, and that's really all they interact with it?
That's a good question. So in terms of the users, I believe that, we have locals that use the RITIS platform, and I guess I'm not sure how much they use it, but we are starting to incorporate the RITIS reporting in our scope and kickoff documents when we get a study started. So we do need to go deeper in including them maybe in our post timing reports and things like that. We've integrated little parts, but they've been a big help in saying, hey, as you can see, here's the trouble spots. So go retime it and be ready for those tough spots.
And then going back, you got a specific slide showing the travel time delays and congestion cost savings that were being produced.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious, is that just for the specific retiming projects? Were there other things that you incorporated in to get to that big number? Because I think, if memory serves, you had something like $37 or $39 million in savings for the year.
Correct. No, this was all just signal retimings. So maybe some of these have gotten upgraded corridors or controllers or something like that. But we don't. It's literally using the existing hardware that's out there, and changing the timing is about 99% of the program. So it's usually not a big corridor rebuild.
Gotcha. And then going down to the crash reductions too, is that something that you all are calculating because of the signal retiming, or is there other pieces that are going in to that to help come up with that number?
I think we use a certain CMF probably. I think we take the crashes from the last 3 years on the corridor, and then we apply the CMF to a retiming. And I think that's how we get the crash reduction benefit.
I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, I know that there are plenty of states that have looked at the delay savings and the travel time savings. I don't know that anyone that I've seen has taken that next step with applying the CMFs to it. That's a really neat approach.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to share our spreadsheets. We have them on our website, so how we post process it, and it has the references and all the calculations.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think I will certainly say that'd be a great question. I think we could probably get that added to the written Q&A when we get that posted later on.
Great.
That said, I've certainly asked my fair share of questions. What all does the audience have, or do the panelists have? All right, well, hearing none, thank you again, Charlie. That was a really great presentation. We'll go ahead and get this moved over. I think have you stop sharing your screen and get the next panelist lined up here. And Mark, I think that is you.
Sounds
Mark,
good.
when
Thanks,
you're ready,
Matt.
go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead and share your screen.
thanks. All right. All right, so my name is Mark Franz. I am the lead transportation analyst at CATT Lab, and my presentation today is on the causes of congestion graphs, the CCG tool, as we call it internally, in probe data analytics. As Michael was mentioning in his introduction to the recent enhancements in RITIS, since the last quarter that we met as a group, we've released this tool. I think there's 15 states that have access to it as full RITIS members, and we're going to continue working on updating the data in this tool as we move forward, which I'll talk a little bit about once we get into the details. So just a quick summary of what I'll be talking about today. The motivation for creating the causes of congestion graphs tool, which is a spinoff of our national study that we did for the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. We'll also talk about the goals and objectives for the deep dive tool, a quick summary of the data that goes into it, and as well as the methodology. Not that much has changed from what we did in the national study, so I'll just rehash on that quickly. Then I'll kind of give a tutorial / demo to show you all how the tool works and how to generate results. And then I'll jump back into my PowerPoint and go over some specific use cases that I think you all might find interesting, but get your feedback on that. So the motivation for creating the deep dive tool, as I mentioned, it was a spinoff of what we did at the national level. So we presented on that at this meeting a while ago when we completed the study, but that was a sort of groundbreaking work that updated, much needed update to the causes of congestion pie chart that was conducted back in 2004. This time we did the analysis with real world data, and we gave breakdowns not just of cause of congestion at the national level, but we also provided breakdowns for the states as well as counties within the states. And then users can also select custom month range within calendar year of 2019. So that was a significant achievement for us to do that at a national level. But after talking with you all, we started to realize there was a desire and a need to provide even deeper insights into the causes of congestion. More specifically, we wanted to enhance the spatial coverage. So the national study only considered the national highway system, but many of our RITIS members have access to probe data and other data beyond the NHS, so enabling those segments to be analyzed. We also wanted to enhance the temporal coverage. So again, the national study was just 2019. So we wanted to, match that and then get it caught up with what the present day is. And as Michael said, we, have up through July for some states. I think yesterday, a few more states actually got updates through September, and the rest are coming. And then we're working on a process that's going to be automating that update either monthly or perhaps weekly. It's kind of what we're working on. We also recognize the need to enable a customized spatial and temporal analysis. So by that, I mean, you can filter for specific dates, hours of the day, even days of the week, and then drill down to specific road segments to discover the causes of congestion. We also wanted to enhance some of the data that we use to identify the causes of congestion. In our national study, we mostly relied on crowdsourced data for national coverage, but recognizing that many of the RITIS partnering agencies are sharing their incident and work zone data. We have that in hand. We wanted to incorporate that into the results. And then lastly, we wanted to determine and display the top multi-cause categories for each query. So what I mean by that is in our national study, we had a predefined 4 commonly found multiple cause categories. But with the deep dive tool, we let the data dictate what those top 4 are. So it's a dynamic algorithm that we have that displays the top 4 multi-cause categories for whatever your specific query is. And I'll kind of highlight that when I go into my demo. So with all this in mind, our goals are to kind of enable all those needs that we talked about. So include the non-NHS segments, bring in the agency-specific data for incidents and work zones, enable the additional and more recent temporal coverage, the drill down, as I mentioned, for specific dates, hours of the day and days of the week for specific road segments, and then to get those updates into the system on a regular basis. I'll just mention here, I'm not going to talk about it in great detail, but we have come up with an alternative portion of our user delay cost algorithm, specifically the volume limiting equations. We're worked on replacing that and proving that it was more accurate using ground truth data. So that's been incorporated and is what's being used to estimate the vehicle hours of delay and user delay cost in the deep dive tool. So as I mentioned, the coverage will go back to 2019 for all participating states, and we'll continue updating into the future. The spatial coverage is any segment with the 1 minute probe data. It's also worth noting that we need to have volumes on those roads too. And before we launched this, our team met with each of the agencies that would have access to this tool to discuss what their volume prioritization strategy was. Some have submitted their own volume data, especially to cover off of the NHS. Other ones wanted to rely on the NHS volumes that they submit to the HPMS. So lots of different flavors. Different states had different priorities, but we have that documented, and we'll continue using them. And I'll just as I'll mention at the end too, but states have the opportunity to update their volumes specifically for the causes of congestion graphs by October of each year, and they'll be included in the following calendar year. So just something to keep in mind as we roll this out and keep moving it forward. It's important to update your volumes to keep the results as accurate as we can make them. So similar to what we did in the national study, the agency data that we're bringing in to enhance our data sources. So we're still bringing in Waze data and other crowdsourced data for some of these sources, but we added the agency data for incidents and work zones for all the states that are participating. So just to give you a sense of what the enhancement are in terms of a spatial coverage, this is the list of 15 states that have access to the deep dive tool currently. The first column there is the NHS segments. The second is the non-NHS segments, or you can think of that as being the new segments that were previously not analyzed or even available in any of our results. And then the last column there is the summation of those two. So I won't go through all the details here, but you can see that most states, the non-NHS segments are larger than the NHS segments, and in some cases by a factor of, multiple factor. So the increased spatial coverage is fairly significant, and we're hoping that'll unlock some more insights for you all to better manage the highway network. Oh, one thing that I'll mention here too is back to the volumes. So this is the list of all possible road segments that would be available. But in addition to having that probe data, we also need the volumes for all of the roads, which most states on this list have pretty good coverage, above 90%. There are a few that aren't, but that is what it is, and we encourage them to submit their volumes so that we can include those additional roads where the probe data is already available. So just real quick then, I think most people on this call have seen this slide before. It's the general methodology that we use to identify, quantify, and categorize the causes of congestion. So this is the main framework for us behind the scenes crunching the numbers. So we start by identifying when and where congestion occurs, similar to what we do in our bottleneck ranking tool. Then we take that, the speed drop in the queues to estimate what the user delay cost is, and that's how we quantify each individual bottleneck. And then we use the bottleneck head location and have a spatial and temporal search algorithm that looks for different causes, right? So it could be a traffic signal, it could be recurrent congestion, weather, an incident, you name it. If we have it, we're searching for it, and then we'll assign that user delay cost to that category and build the pie chart accordingly. So I'm going to jump out of my tool for a moment just to give you all a very quick sort of tutorial / demo of how to run queries in the new tool. So this is the Probe Data Analytics landing page that lists all of the tools that are available. The newest one is down here with vehicles in a pie chart. So this is cause of congestion graphs. And you can come in here, and it's very similar to what most of our other Probe Data Analytics query functionality is. So I won't go through that in much great detail. So if you want to select certain road segments, now we have Oregon and RITIS. I like to use them sometimes because we so often use East Coast states, but now that we're expanding, so I'll go ahead and pick Multnomah County. That's the county in which Portland resides, and you can do either all segments. I'll just do interstates and US routes. I'll go ahead and add those regions or that selection, and it'll zoom in and show me the road segments that are included in my query. The next step is to look at the date range. So Oregon's one of the states where we've gotten caught up through September. So let's just do the entire month of September. So it's now September 1st to the 30th. Let's say I just want to do weekdays. And again, this is new functionality that we didn't have before. You couldn't select dates, you couldn't select days of the week, and you could not filter by even hour of the day. So let's say they want to look like the PM period. Let's call it from 3 to 7. And you can slide that around and add that time period. By default, as we do in the user delay cost tool, we assume the national cost per passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles respectively. And then if you want to give this its own name, I'll just go ahead and put demo in. And then the last option, if you want to add notes for yourself or for your colleagues when you pull up this query in the future to remind yourself what you were doing it for, you can go ahead and do that. I'll admit that part as it's an optional step, and then I'll go ahead and hit submit. And you can see I'm doing this in real time. So we have the database set up, and since this is all pre-computed, we can render the results pretty quickly. So you can see this output, and because this is a fairly large urban area, especially in Oregon, recurrent congestion by itself is the largest single category, followed by incidents. We have unclassified signals, work zones, holidays, and weather. The thing that we're seeing pretty common now that we're mixing crowdsourced data with agency provided data is that this multi-cause category has been increasing pretty significantly compared to what we saw in our national level study that did not use the agency specific data. So you can see that the multi-cause is actually the largest category of all of them, more than any one single category. But as you might expect, when we start mixing, and again, this top 4 is customized based on the data for that query that I ran in Multnomah County for that date range. So incidents plus recurrent, which were the top 2 single outputs or causes combined together to be a fairly significant multi-cause. Then we have recurrent plus unclassified. And when we see unclassified, it just means that, if it's unclassified by itself, that we detected congestion, but we aren't able to find a cause for it in the data that we brought in. So when we see recurrent plus unclassified, there's a recurrent pattern, but it's worse than it normally has been. So something else is going on. And in this case, we don't know exactly what that additional cause is. We also have incidents plus work zone, holiday plus incidents, and then other multiple causes, which can be up to all 6 of the single causation categories in this output. On the left, you also get a summary of what's included in your query. So again, it's the interstates and US routes in Multnomah, which is almost 250 road miles. I did it just for weekdays. Looks like my query ran for all hours of the day, though I meant to do it just for the PM peak hours. Reminder of what you use for delay costs. Right now, the default, and this is not adjustable in the tool, is that we assume 90% passenger vehicles, 10% commercial. And then on the bottom here, we kind of have the summary of what the summation of the total vehicle hours of delay and delay costs by passenger commercial vehicle. I'll jump back into my presentation here. Kind of give you the tutorial. I took some screenshots of it just in case my the live demo didn't work. That was the state of Virginia, but you can see the results are the same. Oh, one thing that I forgot to show in the demo is up on this interface. So by default, it shows a bar chart because we have quite a number of categories to show. But if you want to see the sort of traditional view of a pie chart, you can just click on that icon, and it's the same data, but it's just in the the circular pie chart display of the information. And of course, everything's downloadable, as as the table and the charts behind it. And then we have the help page links and the associated notes link as well. So quickly then I'll kind of walk through some use cases that, at least from my side, I thought were somewhat interesting. Some might be more, academic. Other ones I think are going to be more what agencies would likely do with these. But as you guys get more familiar with this tool and have specific use cases, we welcome you to share those with us so that we can better understand how you all are using this and have you perhaps present on how you're utilizing this tool. So the first use case that I was particularly interested in is how much impact did this agency data on incidents and work zones impact the results? So the research question is like, how is that changing the distribution of these causation categories? And I did this in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is just outside of DC, as you can see there on the map. I did it for the national highway segment, which so I could reflect what was in the national level study. So it's 2019, all days of the week and all hours. I didn't do any filtering on the temporal filtering on the data for this example. It was more to compare the results with the methodology and data sources in the national level study. So I ran the query and then I did the comparison. So I'm sorry about that. The first column there is the national study percentage that we had for Fairfax County, Virginia in 2019. The second column is the output that we got from the new cause of congestion graph tool. And then the last column is the difference between those two. So I used the red boxes here to call out some specific observations. So we see that recurrent congestion in the new tool was actually quite a bit lower, almost 12% lower than it was in the national level study. And then on the other side, we saw an increase of just over 7% in the contribution of signals. So we did, I highlight these other two categories, incidents and work zones specifically, because those are the categories where we brought in new data. So you might have expected to see these have larger changes, which, I think if you look at this at a high level, it could be misleading, because if we go down to the multi-cause categories, we see, the incidents plus recurrent has gone up quite a bit, incidents in the work zone. So that's being redistributed to the multi-cause categories. And again, that's something that we're commonly seeing when we start mixing all these additional data sources together, is that multiple causes is generally starting to go up. Fortunately as well, the unclassified category tends to go down. So where we didn't know what caused the congestion in the national study, with these new data sources, we're able to resolve, not all of them, but some of them. So that's the improvement that we were hoping to see. The second use case, again, I stayed in Fairfax County, Virginia. And this time around, I did a comparison on that would leverage our ability to now filter by specific days of the week and hours of the day. So I compared all of 2019, all hours and all days, versus just the weekdays, again, still all hours. And then I did weekdays versus the sort of daylight hour period, which I defined here as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So each of those three temporal coverages, all hours, all days, is in the first column. Weekdays, all hours is the middle column. And then weekdays from 7 a.m. to p.m. is in the third column. And just, not to go through all of these in detail, but you can see that if we start all hours of all days, the recurrent congestion is lower than when we focus on weekdays. So that makes sense. Most recurrent congestion, especially in an area like Fairfax County, just outside of DC, that it's mostly going to happen on weekdays. And then again, when we drill down to specific time periods, that encapsulates both the AM and PM, as well as any midday congestion that we might recurrently have in the DC region, it tends to increase. So these results, aren't validation by any means, but I think that they certainly show that data and the methodology is doing sort of what we would expect it to do, at least anecdotally. The same thing with unclassified. We know that especially the crowdsourced data tends to have better coverage during the weekdays. It follows VMT patterns, to be honest with you. So weekdays, daylight hours in urban areas are better than, their opposites there. So we saw the unclassified go down as we started to filter to weekdays and then to specific hours of the day where there's just generally more traffic and more people using their apps and reporting events out on the road. Then my third use case, I knew Bob would be presenting with me, so I thought that I would give a tip of a hat to him and his colleagues for all their work that they work with us on improving RITIS and PDA. So this is a use case where you kind of have to use two tools within PDA. The first one is the bottleneck ranking tool to identify what the top bottleneck, in this case, I just focused on interstates in Massachusetts for 1 month, April 2022. And then I used that to discover what that top bottleneck was, export those TMCs, the head location, as well as the queues into the causes of congestion graph tool so that we could discern what is the underlying cause of this top bottleneck in the state of Massachusetts. So step one is that bottleneck ranking tool, which I'm guessing most of you are familiar with, but you essentially get the output that ranks up to 1,000 bottlenecks in your query. The top bottleneck for this period for the interstates in the state of Massachusetts was I-93 North. So this is giving access to downtown Boston. So I focused in on this particular bottleneck location, and we have a tool or a button within the bottleneck ranking table that allows you to copy the TMCs. So it's the head location, then all of these segments that are in blue behind it on the map are included, and then you can directly go to the causes of congestion graph tool and go into the segment codes tab, as you see here, paste those in there and put in the same query. So I did it for, again, April, as you can see the dates. And because this was giving access, it's a northbound route giving access to downtown Boston, I took a guess that this was probably mostly an AM peak period. So I did 6 to 9 AM, and then I ran my query. And here's what the output looks like. Note here, because I'm looking at segments that are just on an interstate, you don't see the signal category. That's because there are no signals on these road segments. Most interstates don't have signals, so we don't present that, right? But we see the incidents and recurrent congestion are biggies here. But again, the multi-cause sticks out, and when we break that down, you look at the incidents plus recurrent. That's the combination of the top two single categories, and recurrent and incidents continue to contribute to the other multiple causes. Interestingly, here we saw incidents plus recurrent plus weather, so a 3-factor multi-cause combination was in the top 4 for Boston, which for Boston in April, maybe there still was some winter weather or at least rain that was contributing to that. So again, not validation, but hopefully it helps pass the sniff test for you all that are trying to digest some of this work. So that completes my presentation. Again, I have it here to remind myself, the deadline to update the volumes so that we can include them each calendar year is October 1st. Once we get them for you, they'll also become available in the user delay cost tool. I know that we're past October 1st for this year. I've been in communication with you all. If you're still trying to squeeze it in, I can try to talk to our developers if that's in the works. Otherwise, we'll continue using the most recent data that we have that I had determined with you all in independent calls. So I will pause there and take any questions or comments that you all have.
We'll certainly appreciate that, Mark. We actually have a few questions in the Q&A box, and I think to keep us going, what I'm going to do is maybe just have you go ahead and answer those directly in the Q&A box rather than out loud. So that way we can stay on track.
Sounds good.
So yeah, so again, appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we will use this opportunity to go ahead and hand it over to John Allen. So John, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and pulling up your screen so we can start working through the performance measures working group.
Sure, thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. And Afternoon, everyone. My name is John Allen. I work for the CATT Lab. I do a number of different things there, but one of the things I do is to work with a performance reporting working group made up of a bunch of really talented folks from different agencies to come up with different reporting templates. And so I'm very happy to announce that we just deployed the top 10 bottlenecks package, which is available on the RITIS templates page. I just wanted to quickly step through that, about how to access that and some of the key features of that. So it's available on the PDA suite landing page and other locations, but I'm choosing to go to the RITIS logon page. You come up here to the templates button, you just click that and you choose the top 10 bottlenecks report here. Then you know that you must log on to the download page to use this template, as well as the design resources. So you just log on. And up comes two new buttons where you can download the template and the design resources. The design resources includes things like icons and customized icons, specialized tables, charts, graphics, instructions on how to do certain things like embedding code and things like that. It's very simple, easy to use, and it's really going to make reporting, developing these reports a lot easier and faster. Then we have a number of different use cases for the agencies. In this case, we used Baltimore Metropolitan Council's quarterly congestion report as an example to develop this particular template and report from using the template. They're very happy with it. They've been using it. It's going to be released soon and talked about at a future RITIS user group reading. So it's something that they think really helped take their 75-page report and turn it into about 15 pages. And it's much more robust and has a lot more of information. Then we talk about some of the tools used in the report. And right here, you'll see there's different links there. This takes you to the video tutorial page. So if you need a quick refresher or you're not familiar with these tools, you can go there and get some good understanding about how to use the tools and what the results are and how to tweak that information. And then we come here, there's design recommendations from the feds when they did some performance reporting, technical reports, just good things to keep in mind as you're working through it. And then you come to the how to create a report section. This is the how-to guide that we developed, basically broken into covers and content, right? So you have the covers that you can develop, all the content, and we step through this thing and really take you step by step about how to do everything. And you'll see a couple things here, like for example, these little pop-ups, so the little light bulbs, it's hard to see, but they give you tips and they're broken through the way about how to do things better or what to consider as you build these things. You can also click on the magnifying glass to get a little bit of expanded view. And then down here, some of these are really small, but when you pop it up, we made the expansion even bigger. So you can see some of the detail of this query screen, for example. And there's also some of these blue triangles, which point to important things to keep in mind about certain aspects of this particular query or other things in this step. So we think this will be really, really useful to folks. As I said, Ed Stilts, who worked for BMC, had told me a lot of positive feedback from using this particular report. So when we create these templates and offer up these use case or users case scenarios in the pages, we try to give you some options. So you can use these things standalone or in combination. There's been a couple agencies that have blended a couple to make their own reports, but we like to do things like maybe a highly technical report or something a little more simplistic that shows icons that are clickable and take you to detailed RITIS results that are live and actionable. Maybe you like the portrait orientation and you want to key in on incident hotspots, for example, in this bottlenecks particular template. So just trying to give you all options and to do that. We have 2 additional templates in the pipeline right now. The first is the after action review. Is hoping to have this done so we could talk about it today and also show you that that's live. It's very close. Talking to developers, they're almost done putting it on the test server. Rick Ayers, who works at the CATT Lab, and I will be going through that, and we'll be releasing this soon within probably a week or 2. And the other one is the holiday travel forecast one, working on that hard right now. And we'll have that completed. And then what we're going to do is take that report and have a meeting with our performance reporting working group to talk about the overall package for the forecast template and the content and finalize that and then shoot that off to the developers so they can start doing their thing. We're also going to be moving on to other templates. First and foremost is the work zone template. I know it's a high priority for you all, and we have some examples out there, but we really want to step back, take a good hard look at it, and make sure we're having the right information and the right results for you to really evaluate work zones effectively. And I know that Bob's going to talk a little bit about automating the work zone reporting. That's, you know, a challenge and might take some time. So in the interim, we want to get this report out into your hands so you can start using it right away. And it might be very instructive later on when we do have the automated reporting to make it better and more useful. And then we're going to also brainstorm some other template ideas. We have a couple in mind, but if you think of anything that is really a high need for you, just contact me and let me know, and we'll see if we can get that into the mix for you. And then lastly, I know Denise mentioned this up front, but we have a RITIS workshop coming up. I'm going to be there, but the main guy will be Rick Ayers. He's absolutely terrific at running webinars and training sessions. If you've ever had one of the opportunities to see Rick do his thing, he's awesome. I highly recommend tuning in. It'll probably be the best hour and 15 minutes you did all week. So here's the address for getting yourself registered for that workshop. And I believe Esther will put that link right into the chat box as well. So you could click on it there if you haven't already got one of the notices about that. So that's all I have.
Appreciate that, John. That was really great. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and throw them in the Q&A box. I know we have a few currently out there. We'll be going to Bob Frey here in a second, and I apologize to Bob. I neglected to introduce him earlier in the presentation, so let me go ahead and do that now. Bob has worked in a variety of roles at MassDOT's planning office for more than 2 decades. Most recently, one of his main focus areas has been vehicle probe and GPS data as he manages MassDOT's RITIS contract and has participated in various coalition meetings for the last few years. So Bob, let me go ahead and hand it over to you. And well, as a quick pause moment, Jennifer, I saw that you had a question for the larger group near the tail end of this presentation. We'll try to get back to that. So Bob, let me hand it to you.
Great, thanks, Matt. And thanks, Joanna, for the slides here, running the slides, and thanks to Michael for coming up with the slides. So this first slide here, just a little bit about our enhancements group. There's several of us DOTs that are on it, and basically our funding is coming from 2 sources. The chart you see on the left here, we've already talked about some of these a little bit. This is what we've kind of voted on for the first group of enhancements to get underway. And then on the left, I'm sorry, the one on the right, those are upcoming projects, and we'll talk about those a little bit more quickly at the end. So let's talk about the stuff on the left here. Next slide, please, Joanna. Okay, automated work zone reporting. All right, so this, as John just mentioned, this is a high priority for a lot of DOTs. There's a lot of really useful information that can come out of this, and we all know that certainly, you know, we get a lot of these requests for information on, you know, how is this work zone performing, and what are, you know, what are the savings, and so forth. There's not enough funding right now to completely automate everything. So what's been decided initially here is just to take a small amount of the available funding to kind of do a scoping and some initial design, and see what everyone wants, what they like about these different features, And then we can do a full scope later. And hopefully take advantage of some additional funding that we'll get. I know we're going short on time here, so we'll move right along through here. Next slide, please. All right, sharing of dashboards and reports. This, as Michael told me, this is not as easy to do as they once thought it was. But the bottom line here is the goal is to allow an organization to share their reports and dashboards with whoever they want. Certainly doing that internally within your organization is going to be easier first, but then the goal is also to be able to share them outside. So that's being worked on as well. Next slide, please. All right, building out additional reporting templates. You just heard from John on some of this with the top 10 bottlenecks reports, the after action review that's coming up soon, and the holiday travel template. Everyone loves templates. They're very popular. They're relatively low cost. As John said, there's several more in progress. There's some examples already on the RITIS site. And there's been some demos already as well. So that's underway and moving along nicely. Next slide, please. Michael mentioned this already. So this has already been deployed. This is a nice feature, just putting Google satellite view into the background. So everyone likes that. Next slide, please. All right, causes of congestion. Yeah, we heard from Mark a lot on this, and thanks, Mark, for the shout out for Massachusetts top bottleneck locations. That's great. And yeah, so the causes of congestion graphs tool, that's the main thing here. But bottom line, additional filtering, being able to really drill down and get get a better sense of where these causes are, and we had been discussing that the multiple causes are really important to people. So that's that's still working. We're still working on that, and as you just heard, a lot of good progress being made on that. Next slide, please. All right, new speed tile layer options. Basically, there's 4 options right now that you see there: speed, comparative speed, congestion, and average congestion. The goal here is to give new layers, make new layers available, new options, and declutter the map as well. So you can only show certain colors or layers, like getting rid of the green, for example. So just the congested areas would show up. So that's being worked on as well. So those are the main things. Yep. And that's what's been funded right now. And that's basically between 5 DOTs right now. I'll mention quickly some of these other things that are coming up in the pipeline, where some other funds we've started to make use of those, the list on the right there. The freight movement, safety avoidance analytics. We received a large federal motor carrier safety grant that will help out with this, with both that and the safety analytics. So that's going to be on the way. Signal analytics, Michael mentioned some 40 odd items that have already been added. So that's still working on that. Trip analytics enhancements, that's always of great interest to people. Greg Jordan's been working a lot on a beta version of a new improved trips analytics platform, where there's much more detail in how you can define your study area. Better clarity on the internal and external trips, better organization of queries, organizing into things like your own list of studies, kind of like a My History thing. And so that is still under development, but looking very good. The energy analytics, so far, I think that's only in DC and Columbus, Ohio. The problem there is you need good vehicle registration data. We might be able to leverage a Department of Energy database, but that's still underway. And then also working on speed bins visualization. I think some initial work has been done for Michigan, but that's only going to be built if there's time to do that. So bottom line here is all these things cost money. So I like to make a pitch to all my fellow DOTs to try to contribute to this group, to this funding. Here at MassDOT, we've actually made it part of our annual SPR work program, which means the feds will fund this. So I encourage a lot of other DOTs to try to do the same thing. And if we can actually get commitments of funding year to year, it's going to make it much easier to budget this out and move forward with more of these projects. That is a quick summary. Any questions?
Appreciate that, Bob. I think as people are kind of getting their thoughts together, I want to use as a nice segue for our agency input session. And we're going to go ahead and pull up a few poll questions for everyone. There's 5 that are going to be available for you. Feel free to answer all or just 1 or 2, depending on what you feel most passionate about. Again, this is a mechanism that's really important to RITIS, CATT Lab, the Eastern Transportation Coalition, really to make sure that we are gathering this information back from the states as we hear it. Certainly we get feedback through the support@ritis.org email address, but we like to take these opportunities to make sure that we're getting it back from the user group that's participating in these meetings with us. Additionally, once you get done with this here in a few minutes, I think Jennifer had a question to many of the states that we're going to try to bring up just to provide her with a little bit more feedback. So Joanna, I think once you feel like you start seeing things slow down, we can switch over to that other one. And again, thank you to Bob for presenting those new enhancements. If you have any questions specific to that, you go ahead and throw that into the Q&A session down below, and we can get that knocked out. If you have to hop off before you get that answer, we can certainly get it answered and then provide it in the overall presentation materials that'll be posted to the Eastern Transportation Coalition's website at a later date. And Joanna, let me go ahead and ask you a quick question of how does it look like we're starting to slow down a little bit, and do you think we're ready to hop over to that last question?
Actually, Matt, it looks like we're just getting a couple people to answer. I know these are not simple check boxes, yes, no type of thing. So it may take them a few minutes to answer that.
Sure.
I guess we could ask folks. I mean, we may end up having some follow-up in the email that comes out, whether it's these polling questions or it's even includes Jennifer's, just to try to get some input from folks that are participating, because I know people will have to jump off at 2:30, a lot of them, but please complete your answers. We'll leave. I can ask Esther, can you pull up the other poll at the same time or no?
I cannot, but what I can do is pull up this set of questions again after we pull up Jennifer's question.
What I think might be helpful, since we do want to be respectful of everyone's time, and I see a few folks already dropping, is maybe Joanna, what we do is go ahead and let people, go ahead, close this out, and we can send this list of questions out
Okay.
to the participants for them to answer that way. Would that make sense?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We're just gonna give
Okay.
everybody like another 30 seconds or less, just so that if you're typing, it doesn't stop you in the middle.
And while you're finishing your final thoughts, again, I just want to take the opportunity to thank our panelists and our presenters today. I think everyone, as always, did an excellent job. Really exciting to see the enhancements that are coming along, as well as the way that people are starting to use those enhancements to the tools to answer more complex questions that they have. Thank you, as always, to Denise and Joanna and Esther for keeping us sane and helping getting this organized. And thank you to everyone that was able to participate today in the session as a participant. Always love the opportunity to share the great things that are going on across the country. So with that, Denise, let me hand it to you to see if you have any parting thoughts that you want to pass on.
And we're gonna close the poll right now, and then we'll, like we said, Matt said, we'll send the questions out too.
No, I think you,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you. Matt, you always do an amazing job with this. Thanks to everybody. Hopefully you all found this. I always find this amazingly exciting and interesting with the work that Michael's doing and all the work that you're going to benefit from with these features, the new enhanced features. So I think I have nothing more to add, Matt. I think you did a great job. Joanna, thank you. Speakers, thank you. Anything else that I miss, Joanna? Are we good?
No, I think we're good. We're just gonna leave
Okay.
this poll open for a couple minutes so that if anybody has anything to add, feel free to do so. And but we will have a link to those final questions when you receive your information on the follow-up information from this meeting. So again, just to echo both Matt, Denise, thank you today, and of course to everyone who participated.